I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the brutal murder of Aliza Sherman, a wonderful mom and nurse from Cleveland who was murdered in 2013 in broad daylight in a case that went unsolved for more than a decade. Here's the story. Aliza Sherman, a beloved 53-year-old Cleveland Clinic nurse and mother of 4, was ambushed in broad daylight on March 24th, 2013. Waiting outside her divorce attorney's office downtown, she was viciously stabbed over 10 times, with her body left bleeding on a public sidewalk. No signs of robbery, just pure, calculated violence. Her desperate 911 call echoed through the city as passers-by rushed to her aid. The case grew cold, mired in sorrow and unanswered questions. Vigils and flower-strewn memorials kept her memory alive. Now, 12 years later, a stunning breakthrough. Investigators arrested her former divorce attorney, Gregory Moore. Accused of orchestrating the murder, Moore is now indicted on aggravated murder, kidnapping, conspiracy, and even 6 counts of murder. Decades of silence shattered by a single arrest, offering the hope of justice long denied. It has been way too long for justice for Aliza Sherman and her family. This case, there are so many things that make very little sense and are extremely unusual, including the passage of time and now the arrest. The arrest of her divorce attorney? A man she hired to represent her interests in the breakup of her long marriage to Dr. Sanford Sherman. Her divorce attorney is the one accused of her murder? Stunning development in all of this. He was on the radar, though. He's been on the radar for years. Something else about this case, that, like, the killer is caught on video. Here it is. This is the killer fleeing the scene. 2013, they had security cameras. Here's a closer look. That's approaching the camera. And then you see the backside, so you can see, you know, if you look at how high everything is on the wall there, how tall the killer may be, there's things that you can do to try to get some level of a profile here. You can look at the way the person walks. So Gregory Moore, her attorney, is arrested. That was just video of the killer. So that brings us to the first question in our investigation. Is this video showing Gregory Moore? Is that him in the video? Is that the now accused murderer in the video? Here to help answer that question, creator and host of Grisly True Crime on YouTube, Gisela Kay is with us, and Maria Zuhl, friend of Aliza Sherman, is with us as well. Thank you so much for being here. Maria, let me just start with, before we even get to that video, your thoughts about finally an arrest in the case for the murder of your friend Aliza.
Yeah, we've waited a long time, and I was always suspicious of the lawyer because he wasn't there when he was texting her that he was saying that he was there, and he didn't make any kind of statement after she was brutally murdered. So it didn't make sense to me that, you know, your client is murdered outside your office and you don't say, you don't make any kind of statement like, my God, I'm devastated. We got to find whoever did this. So to me, that was bizarre. That's a red flag for me.
Absolutely bizarre. Another one of the strange circumstances in all this. Okay, Gisela, I know you've looked at this video many, many, many times. I have as well throughout the years. Do you think that is Greg Moore? Because he's charged with murder. He's also charged with some level of conspiracy. Do you think that even looks like a man walking?
Obviously, that's speculative, but my gut tells me that it's very, very plausibly him. even though obviously wearing a hoodie and wearing gloves, and we can't see the person's face, so we don't know their race, their age, their gender, or anything. The coat is looking oversized. We don't even know if they're running with that free right hand, if that would be their dominant hand or not. So there's a lot we don't know. But then on the other side of things, we know so much about what Gregory Moore was up to that day now, just based on his cell phone data, that I just think it's very, very likely him. If not him, then who else?
Well, let's take a look. We've got some video of Gregory Moore walking, because that's the clue we have, right? The clue that's been revealed. And I don't know if there's anything unusual about his walk. Maria, obviously, for years you watched that video. Do you think that video could be Gregory Moore as we watch him walk here?
I really thought it was someone who was hired, someone else. I never thought it was him. Though, now, I guess it could be, now that I'm thinking about it. To me, the person also who was running, the person who did the killing, the way they were holding their arm, it looked like maybe the knife was in their arm, in their clothing, and they couldn't move that one arm. I don't know. And then who picked up the killer? Because from what I understand, the trail stopped at a certain point, and who was there to, pick the person up and get them out of there?
And as you say that, Maria, that makes so much sense. And Gisela, that makes some sense too, that there could be two involved here, whether he is or is not the killer. Whoever the killer is would have to get out of downtown Cleveland.
Yeah, I wonder who would work with him on this, and especially on a Sunday, and knowing that Aliza would be outside the building, because this was a Sunday when he lured her to his law offices. So the timing of all of that would be very interesting as well. For those who don't know, he's 5'9". So I don't know if that will help for people analyzing the footage to know, could that be him or not? I think that could help rule it out as well. But whoever that was, there's cameras all over the place. It's a Sunday, broad daylight as well. Later in the afternoon, 5 p.m.-ish, 5:30. But to commit a crime like this is also pretty dumb. So to me, all roads lead still to Gregory Moore.
Maria, from Aliza, for her, did she ever talk about Gregory Moore, her lawyer? Did she ever talk about him with you?
No, I didn't really. No. There was an incident where her husband, she thought, did something with the cat that she was taking care of, and I took her to the police station, and she couldn't find the cat, and then the next day the cat appeared. I guess her lawyer called her then. That's about all I really knew with the lawyer.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's something that you might not share. I didn't know if she got a strange vibe from him at all. But Gisela, when we look at the timing of it all, it was unusual for this meeting on a Sunday. I know that the trial was coming up, the divorce trial was coming up, but they had met on Saturday, the day before. So it wasn't expected that she would come back on Sunday.
Right. And if you just look at his history, at the lengths that he would go to try to delay trials, I can understand why they charged this guy with this, even based on the evidence they have. It sounds bizarre. I don't know how they're going to present this to a jury, that a divorce attorney could commit murder or conspire to commit murder just to delay a trial. But knowing his past and things he was convicted of, it's so possible. And to lure her there on a Sunday under false pretenses that, listen, this trial's going to start tomorrow, we have to meet, it's very urgent, and then to allegedly do this it's really, what a betrayal of trust.
Yeah, Aliza is in a very vulnerable position at this time, right? She's going through this difficult time. You're getting ready for the trial, which is never comfortable for anyone, and you rely upon your attorney to help guide you through it, both legally and emotionally, for family law attorneys, it is not easy work because there's so much emotion infused into the litigation, which doesn't always exist in all cases. And in this case it is, so you rely on your lawyer for a lot. And what prosecutors are saying here is that it's an extreme broken trust. Maria, what does your gut tell you about whether there is someone else potentially involved here?
Well, he's charged with co-conspiracy, so isn't that what, when someone else is involved? I mean, I just don't think he did this on his own. Someone had to be there to pick him up. I mean, he just disappeared. The trail just disappeared, from what I understand, at one point, you know. So, no, I believe someone else is involved.
And Gisela, when we think about someone who is murdered just days before a divorce trial, we know where the first look is, right? The man she's divorcing, Dr. Sanford Sherman. But through all the years, there were a lot of things he was doing, but at no point did they ever say that he was implicated in any of this. He has subsequently passed away.
Yes, and that's actually so astounding because when you look at him, there are a lot of red flags surrounding him as well. But I understand, of course, if the state is saying that he's not at all involved, then I believe them. So who else could it be? You know what I was thinking is that the owners of Stafford and Stafford, they were both, the brothers, suspended at the time. And I worry about that, about help with pickups or help getting into the building or, you know, with a hotspot, because there's people deleting voicemails, there's people deleting video footage, there's this mobile hotspot, and then the change of the phone by an authorized person. All of that is a little bit strange with what's going on inside that company.
Absolutely. Okay, our guests are staying with us. Coming up next, what was going on in Aliza's life at the time of her murder?
My friend Aliza was the most beautiful human being. She was a caregiver. She was a friend. She was just a beautiful person.
Matriarch of the Adelson family gets arrested.
Terrible.
Donna Adelson is facing charges of murder, the death of her former son-in-law, Dan Markell.
Prosecutors say a bitter child custody battle was the motive for the murder-for-hire plot. Now that Donna has turned into a defendant, what's next for the Adelson clan?
Now that the ship is really sinking fast, blood doesn't matter that much.
The Matriarch Mastermind murder trial. Live coverage begins this August on Court TV.
I had a female caller asking for help, that she said she's just been attacked, and she was just kept repeating, "Help me, help me, help me."
The medical examiner's office told us today that Sherman was stabbed 11 times on Sunday, right down here in this walkway behind the Galleria.
Aliza Sherman was able to call 911 after the attack. She was stabbed 11 times when she was attacked. It was broad daylight. It's like 4:30, 5 o'clock on a Sunday in downtown Cleveland, outside of the building where her lawyer's office was. When you talk about Aliza Sherman, she's first and foremost a mom and was so close with her children, but she was also a nurse who helped so many people during her career, a very selfless person. And through the years, so many have taken time to remember Aliza Sherman. Take a listen.
She was gorgeous inside and out, and she would do anything for you.
You were gone before we knew it, and only God knows why.
My friend Aliza was the most beautiful human being. She was a caregiver. She was a friend. She was just a beautiful person.
Aliza was a beautiful soul. She was a nurse. She was a caregiver to her parents. She was an amazing friend to so many. She was a labor and delivery nurse, and she was an in vitro nurse, and all she wanted was to help people. She was a caregiver, and just a lovely, wonderful person you'd want as your friend. She was an angel. She was a caregiver. She treated her patients with the utmost respect. And since she was an in vitro nurse, she also treated the husbands with the utmost respect. She was just a caregiver. She was sunshine. She was kind. She would help strangers.
Makes no sense. It really makes no sense. Let's get to the next question in our investigation, because it's significant in light of what happened to her and the charges now. What was going on in Aliza's life at the time of her murder? Still helping us with our investigation tonight, Gisela Kay and Maria Zuhl, who's a friend of Aliza Sherman. Maria, what was going on? Was the divorce was the big deal at that point?
Yes, I mean, yeah, it was. I mean, she was doing her, going to work and, doing what she needed to do. And like I say, she, I remember her sending me an email about, being a character witness for her, which I thought she didn't need any character witnesses. She was, such a good person. And I just remember that was a long time ago, and, her wondering why, or us wondering why, all of a sudden her lawyer, I guess it was her lawyer, who was saying there are character witnesses needed and stuff. But, yeah, she had a tough life with, with her husband.
How bad did things get at the end?
I think they were bad for years. And so she didn't say as much to me. She didn't really say as much to me. I knew things weren't good, but I didn't know how bad they were until I hear stuff now, to be honest with you, because I think she kept stuff from me because I don't know, someone told me that she thought I had, a great marriage, and I guess someone told me she felt embarrassed about it, and I don't know why, I mean, I didn't know that at the time. I loved Aliza so much, and she was just such a good person. She did everything for you. She was always buying me little gifts, because I love dogs, and she'd always be dropping something off, or, I have so much stuff that she would just find shopping and give it to me. And I say, Aliza, you do too much. And, I was just out with the kids and we were having fun. And she just liked to do those kinds of things. And her
thinking of others,
go out,
thinking of others. Right. It's a mindset. It's just an approach to life that she had. Gisela, but things were difficult. This was like the definition of a bitter divorce.
Yes, the divorce was filed in 2011. And then in the beginning of 2012, Aliza had actually emailed herself to say that she was really scared that her husband was going to have her killed. And so that's why I say he's a little bit of a red flag, but ends up not being actually part of the case according to the state. But she feared for her life. She had a deadbolt on her door. She eventually started telling friends and family that she was scared of her husband or what he might do. And at the time of her murder, she seemed actually optimistic for once. Like, okay, this is actually going ahead. Like, we're actually going to go to trial, because her friend Jan had offered to go with her that day on that Sunday when she was murdered. And she said, no, it's fine. Don't worry. I'll be okay. And she went. So it just gives me the vibe that she was really looking forward to this finally being over. And she'd expressed that to her family as well. And to think that it's the divorce attorney that's actually accused of murdering her is truly shocking.
It is, because you have a case like this. She's afraid of her husband. She's got the deadbolt on her door. She's telling others that she's in fear of this man. And then she ends up dead. And obviously all the attention is going to go to him. But as Maria pointed out, Gisela, Gregory Moore never said a word. It's his client. He's looking out for her interests. He's there to represent her, and he says nothing when she is murdered outside his office going to a meeting that he asked her to come to.
I mean, that speaks volumes. Him saying absolutely nothing, making no statement, not saying, oh my goodness, I can't believe this happened. Instead, his cell phone, this evidence from the cell phone shows he was texting her, creating alibis, deleting videos apparently, doing all sorts of other things, saying he was in the building when he wasn't. And yet when faced with such tragedy everybody's experiencing, he's just quiet. I mean, it really does speak volumes.
Yeah, the quiet is deafening. Maria Zul, thank you so much for joining us. And I just wanted you to leave us with one thing. If you had to describe your friend Aliza in one word, what would that word be?
Gosh, so many beautiful words to say. Loving.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. Maria, thank you so much. And I'm so sorry that you lost your friend. And I hope there's going to be some sense of justice at some point for those who cared and loved her like she loved them. Gisela Kay, Grizzly True Crime YouTube channel, all over this story, obviously, and many other true crime mysteries. Thank you as well. Up next, this is a big question. Why would Gregory Moore allegedly kill his own client? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the brutal stabbing death of Aliza Sherman, who was in the middle of a bitter divorce when her life was taken in broad daylight, trying to meet with her divorce attorney. Here's the story. 12 years after Aliza Sherman was brutally stabbed outside her divorce attorney's office in downtown Cleveland, a shocking name emerged from the shadows: Gregory Moore, her own lawyer. On March 24th, 2013, Aliza, a respected nurse and mother of 4, was ambushed in broad daylight, stabbed 11 times with no sign of robbery. For over a decade, the case went cold, haunting her family and baffling authorities. Then, in May of 2025, investigators dropped a bombshell. Moore had allegedly orchestrated the murder to cover up his own misconduct. He's been indicted on 6 counts of murder, kidnapping, conspiracy, and aggravated murder. Prosecutors say the motive was petty as it was vile. Aliza's family, long tormented by silence, now watches as justice finally steps into the light. In a murder investigation, when you're trying to understand why something could have happened and you're looking for motive, oftentimes you can uncover it when you determine the relationship between the victim and the suspect in a case. But in this one, it seemed to make things almost a little more confusing. Take a listen as you hear the description of this relationship between victim and suspect.
Here we have a lawyer who has taken an oath to uphold the laws of the United States and the state of Ohio, and to show respect towards judges, court staff, clients, and fellow professionals. Greg Moore deliberately chose to violate that oath when he made a calculated decision to call in multiple bomb threats to various courthouses on multiple dates, and when he decided to lie to Aliza Sherman and then to the Cleveland Police Department.
He's her attorney. Gregory Moore, the suspect, is the attorney representing Aliza Sherman. She was going to his office to meet with him. He's now been charged with her murder, which brings us to the next question in our investigation. Why would Gregory Moore allegedly kill his own client? What is going on? Here to help answer the question, journalist Rebecca Lavoie. She's also the host of Crime Writers On podcast, and Ohio criminal defense attorney Don Malarsic. Thank you both for being here. I want to play this short piece from another hearing talking about Gregory Moore, the attorney. Gregory Moore, the family law attorney. Gregory Moore, the guy who is supposed to represent people when they're getting divorced, and if it goes to trial, you try the case. Take a listen.
This defendant was initially charged with 3 separate counts involving inducing panic that found threats were called into 3 separate counties: Geauga County on January 18th of 2012, Lake County on May 30th of 2012, and then Cuyahoga County on July 10th of 2012. This defendant did plead guilty to charges related to Lake County as well as Cuyahoga County. And just so this court is aware, there was one call that was placed to Geauga County. With respect to Lake County, he placed 2 phone calls to 2 separate victims on that day. And then with respect to Cuyahoga County, he placed 3 separate phone calls to 3 separate employees of the Cuyahoga County Courthouse. What's similar in all of these instances is that the defendant was set for trial in all 3 counties on the days that the bomb threats were called in. He was simply just trying to avoid going to trial.
Rebecca Lavoie, are we hearing this right? This is insanity. 3 bomb threats to 3 different courthouses where he was supposed to go to trial?
Yeah, I actually have heard of something like this before, but not with a client. There was a lawyer here in New Hampshire named Seth Bader who in 1996 hired a bunch of goons, went through a huge amount of trouble, put a bomb in his ex-wife's mailbox, put her birds in the oven. All these goons did all these awful things to her just to avoid paying her spousal support after they got divorced. I've heard that, and of course we've heard of Alec Murdaugh. So we know that lawyers are people. They are not perfect. However, if this is truly about not being prepared to go to trial and having his client not realize that or just trying to delay the date, this is maybe the worst CYA possibility you could possibly do if this is indeed what happened. I mean, think about how much easier it would be just to admit I'm not prepared and file a continuance and not come up with these elaborate plans and then allegedly murder someone.
Don Malarsic, how does this even happen? The guy has trial dates in 3 different counties and ends up getting in trouble and charged for calling in bomb threats. And the motive for calling in the bomb threats was because he doesn't want to try the case. Now he's got another trial coming up, and suddenly his client is murdered.
Yeah, it's not good, Vinny. I mean, it's not good. It's insane. It's crazy that he would go to those kind of lengths to just avoid appearing at trial. And he pled guilty to those 3 offenses. But I still think it is quite a leap to say that he would have killed his client to avoid going to trial. As we've heard, there are dozens of things you could do to try to avoid the trial. The relationship is so important, as you said, Vinny. And usually in a murder case, it's either money or some kind of romantic relationship gone wrong. And there's just no evidence of that at all. I find it really hard to believe that the prosecution is going to be able to convince the jury that Gregory Moore killed his client because he didn't want to go to court. That feels like a stretch.
Well, we do have this. Let's take a listen to some of the evidence surrounding Gregory Moore.
Detectives with the homicide unit of the Cleveland Police Department reached out to Mr. Moore, and he essentially lied to them and claimed that he was at work in his office that day. When Aliza notified him that he was there, he said that he went down to the lobby and looked outside and did not see her. And we know that that is absolutely false because he was not in the building that day.
So, Rebecca, as I'm understanding this, he is not telling the truth about where he is at the time of the murder of his client who came down to meet with him.
Right. Right. There's a lot going on here. My understanding is that he was actually charged with that, right? With lying to investigators back then. Also, what was interesting to me when I was reading the indictment is that he was actually kind of like a substitute lawyer for Aliza because her original lawyer, Strafford, was actually suspended for misconduct. So the case got kicked to him. She apparently didn't love working with him. And the indictment sort of lays out this very complicated series of events with obtaining a hotspot, turning off his phone, disconnecting from the cellular network for a few hours, all to maybe avoid a track of like being where he allegedly was. And it's incredibly complicated and it's incredibly unusual, as we heard, to kill your client just to avoid going to trial. To me, I'm still sort of puzzling around that.
Now, let's take a look at the indictment, Don, and what the allegation is here. The purpose, they say, the state of Aliza Sherman's kidnapping was to obstruct the judge from conducting the trial in the divorce case of Sanford Sherman versus Aliza Sherman by causing Aliza Sherman to be unavailable to attend the proceedings due to serious physical harm and or death. They are laying it out there. They're saying it is that simple, as insane as it is, that it is that simple. And he does have a track record of not wanting to try cases. It's not like out of the blue, right? So there is calling it a bomb threat is pretty serious as well. It's not murder, but it's pretty serious.
It's not good. You know, it got him disbarred. It got him some criminal offenses. But again, it's a really big.
Well, let me ask you this, Don.
He would kill his client.
Let me ask you this, though, because the other thing that troubles me, and it troubled Aliza's daughter as well, is that he never said anything. Like, I understand, I know the Constitution. Everybody who watches Court TV knows about the Constitution, right to remain silent, etc. But his client was murdered, and he's got nothing to say to anyone about anything? That's amazing to me.
Well, Vinnie, you said it right. You know, the Constitution says you don't have to make a statement to law enforcement, to the media, to anyone. And as much as we would have liked to hear him say something, maybe that's the human thing to do. If he had spoken to any lawyer worth their salt, that lawyer would have said, look, you're not making any statements at all. And if he's following his lawyer's advice, that's what a good lawyer would tell their client. You're not going to make any statements. You're under suspicion. You're being questioned by law enforcement. They want your phone. They want your bank records. Don't say a word. That's good advice. And if he follows his lawyer's advice, it's hardly able to convince a jury that that means he's guilty.
Yeah, yeah. And then that gets us to the difference of not guilty versus potentially innocent. The other part of this that to me, he wouldn't be the suspect out of the box here, Rebecca. The obvious suspect is the man that she thought was going to kill her. Dr. Sanford Sherman, her soon-to-be ex-husband.
I can imagine that for police, finding that email that she wrote herself must have felt like a gift, right? Like, what an incredible piece of evidence to have somebody say that I'm afraid my husband, who I'm about to divorce, is going to kill me. Again, an unusual circumstance here. One of the things that occurs to me is, you know, aside from avoiding trial, could there be something else that this client and his relationship with her would reveal about his work that would be harmful to his career? I mean, if we are dealing with somebody here who's truly a narcissist or has a personality disorder, the idea that, you know, who they are, what they do, would all of a sudden go away and ruin their life. I mean, that seems to me to be maybe a little bit more of a motivator than, again, just trying to delay trial.
Yeah, or just like find a different profession. That's an easy, you know, it's not an easy job. Like Don knows, it's not an easy job. Okay, our guests are staying with us. Still to come. This is also a conspiracy case, folks. So who is Gregory Moore allegedly conspiring with?
Brian Kohberger accepted a plea offer.
A shocking turn of events.
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Convicted killer Brian Kohberger will learn his fate for murdering 4 Idaho college students.
He is the boogeyman.
And come face to face with the families of his victims.
I pray that we have justice.
The sentencing of Brian Kohberger. Live coverage begins July 23rd, only on Court TV.
Aliza was a woman whose life had immense value and who was brutally taken from us in a crime that shattered our family and deeply impacted our entire community. Our mother cannot stand here today to speak for herself, not by her own choice. So we stand here for her. We are her physical voice. We are her vessel. And while she is no longer with us in body, her spirit remains powerfully present in this courtroom in our pursuit for justice. While this case may be new to your docket, our commitment to justice for Aliza is not. For 4,491 days since March 24th, 2013, we have remained focused on two unchanging goals: to protect the public and to hold the person responsible for her murder accountable.
That was Aliza's daughter, Jennifer, has been such a strong advocate throughout all of this. Really done an amazing job. That was her in court at the arraignment for Gregory Moore. Finally, an arrest for her mom's murder. Let's take a look at the actual charges here, because it's not super simple. There are some other aspects to all of this we need to take a look at. Count 1 is aggravated murder, but count 2 is conspiracy. Counts 3 and 4, kidnapping, and counts 5 through 10, murder. Here's the language from the conspiracy charge. Did with purpose to commit or promote or facilitate the commission of kidnapping, agree with at least one other unnamed individual that one or more of them would engage in conduct that would facilitate the commission of kidnapping. That brings us to the next question in our investigation. Who is Gregory Moore allegedly conspiring with? It seems the state believes there's someone else out there. Still helping us with our investigation, Rebecca Lavoie and Don Malarsic. Don, I'll start with you. Explain this conspiracy charge in Ohio, where we don't have a named co-conspirator. We don't have anyone on arrest. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they did. We don't know who did what in all of this. How does that work in Ohio?
So to be convicted of a conspiracy to commit a crime in Ohio, the prosecution is going to have to show two things. Number one, that the defendant, Greg Moore, was aware of a plan to commit murder. And number two, that he participated in that plan in some overt way, that he committed a substantial step towards the commission of the murder, that he arranged to have her at his office while another person stabbed her. Maybe he stabbed her. We don't know the details of what his role in the conspiracy are, but the state would have to prove those two elements, that he was aware that there was a crime to kill her and that he participated in some active way.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. So the fact that she was going to see him and he had arranged for this meeting arguably could be the step, and that could satisfy that second element.
Yes, if he did so with the purpose of facilitating the kidnapping and the murder. Just bringing your client to your office on Sunday obviously is not a crime.
Right.
So that's where those two elements have to come into play.
And do you have to have any evidence of the two people communicating with one another?
Yes, absolutely. There's got to be some evidence that the two people had a meeting of the minds, that they agreed to commit a crime. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a heat of passion. This was a detailed plan to commit murder. So there has to be some evidence that there was some communication of that plan, and all the participants in the conspiracy were fully aware of it and took some affirmative step to complete that act.
Rebecca Lavoie, do you think anyone is going to go after Sanford Sherman? He was going to be the soon-to-be ex-husband. He's no longer alive, so he can't even speak for himself in all of this. Do you think that either prosecutors will say this perhaps was the person he was conspiring with, or the defense will say this is the person who actually committed the crime?
I don't think that he's the potential co-conspirator here. From what I understand, Moore was given a device, a telephone, and a hotspot that were both billed to the law firm's account. And so I think it's much more likely that somebody who either worked for him, worked with him, somebody over whom he had some influence or control, helped him, got him the tools he needed basically to pull off this kind of complicated ruse around his communications that he pulled off in order to potentially commit this murder. So I'm guessing it's something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if a person had come forward and talked about that and we find that out later. I mean, again, I'm going to mention Alec Murdaugh one more time. This is a lawyer that we know now was embezzling money from his law firm, was stealing money from an insurance claim that was filed on behalf of the children of his dead housekeeper. And people had to have known. I mean, people as paralegals had to have known. Whoever was running the books had to have known. This is not somebody who had sole control and sole eyes on everything on that firm. So I'm guessing it's something along those lines. I think we also know that an employee erased voicemails and video footage after the fact. So there's something going on inside that office.
Wow. Inside a law office. Unbelievable. By the way, I want you to take a listen. This is Gregory Moore's attorney, laying out his perspective on these charges.
You have an innocent man charged with a crime that could take away his life for the rest of it and all of his freedom.
Okay, and obviously he's still presumed innocent in all this. So, Don, how would you evaluate the case here? Because, I mean, we don't know everything that prosecutors know, but we have video of the killer, but we don't know if he's the killer. We don't know if he is we don't know if there is a co-conspirator or if they know who the co-conspirator is. If they knew, would they have to reveal it?
Well, no, they don't have to reveal it. But you know what is unusual in this case, Vinny, is you've read the indictment, we've heard pieces of it, and this is what is called a speaking indictment. And that is really unusual for Cuyahoga County. It's unusual for state court. We see that in federal court a lot, where you've got a 50 or 60-page indictment that outlines not only the motive, but the substantial overt acts that people took in furtherance of the conspiracy. So, we got to remember, the state had 13 years to investigate not only Greg Moore, but his entire law firm, everybody associated with it, bank records, cell records, associates, all of that information. And I believe if they had it, they would have put it in the indictment. They would have strengthened their case. If there was a smoking gun, so to speak, we would have seen about it. If there was some financial irregularities, like in the Murdaugh case, I'm certain we would have seen it in this kind of indictment, which went to the lengths of spelling out an alleged motive. But when it comes to the facts of proving the conspiracy or the elements of the offense, who did it, it's completely silent.
And we have about 30 seconds here, Rebecca. Why do you think it's now that the charges are coming forward?
Yeah, I think that the criminal unit, the BCI, got the case. I think that they looked with new eyes at some of the digital forensics here, and they came up with a pattern that looks a whole lot like Greg Moore did it, and potentially talk to people who, after 13 years, are actually willing to talk because they don't owe this guy anything anymore. We could find that out. Maybe that's why that's not in the indictment. Maybe they're being protected. I'm not certain, but I'm pretty sure that we're going to get a little bit more as the months go on.
Rebecca Lavoie, always great to have you in the program, the Crime Writers On podcast. And Don Malarczyk, I'm glad we brought you in, an expert in Ohio law, great criminal defense attorney. Thank you. If the allegations are true in this case, it is perhaps the most ridiculous motive for a murder. A lawyer killing his client to cover up his own incompetence. That is unforgivable. And there are so many ways for this attorney to get help in his cases. But unfortunately, they all involve admitting your own shortcomings. I wonder why he didn't just walk away from the practice and choose something he was better at, something where his incompetence would not harm others. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.